In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add latitude and longitude to tabular data sets that don't have them yet and that only have addresses. And that process is also called geocoding. So I'm going to start with this data set of free meal locations during COVID-19 published by the Department of Education. This was for a limited period of time, I believe just until the beginning of the 2020 school year. And this is a New York City open data set, and any New York City open data set that contains any type of spatial information, including locations, is supposed to be geocoded already with a longitude and a latitude. And you can see that here in the data. It also has the school name and the school address. For the purpose of this exercise, I have downloaded the CSV and then gotten rid of the longitude and latitude, just so that you can see how that process would work with a data set that only has addresses and doesn't have longitude or latitude. So I have that data set right here. And as you can see, I've got addresses in here, but not latitude and longitude. There's also city and zip code. I'm going to show you how to use Geocoding, which is a good free geocoding service, although there are many different ones available. I'm going to go to the website geocode.io. I'll put all the links in the video description. And then you have to create an account. So I already have my account and I am going to go ahead and start going. Once you have an account, you'll have a dashboard. You can see that I have one with this COVID-19 free meals locations because I've already tried this out, but I'm going to do it again so you can see how it works. Geocoding has a pretty large amount of addresses that it'll process for you for free. So you don't have to worry about having to pay unless you get up against this daily free tier of 2,500, and it'll give you notices if you're getting towards that limit, or it'll just give you an error message and you'd have to put in a credit card, something like that, in order to proceed. So just keep that in mind, the 2,500 row limit for the free tier. I'll click on new upload, and then I'm just going to upload that spreadsheet I just showed you. So as you can see in the spreadsheet, the columns are pretty well labeled. This one says site address, you've got city and zip. So what Geocoding tries to do off the bat is identify where the street address is in the data, the city, the state, zip code, etc. So it correctly identified the street address as site address. It correctly identified city as city. City can show up a little differently. It can be labeled differently in different data sets. Within New York City, it gets a little funky. But if you have a zip code, you should be pretty set. The geocoding service should be able to find it. So for state here, the state is not in the data, so I'm going to manually put that in as New York, since these are all New York City locations. And you can see down here some examples of how it is putting together all of these different fields to build out an address. So these look pretty good. You can imagine if you put these into Google Maps, for example, Google Maps would have no trouble finding them. And actually, the process of typing an address into Google Maps basically triggers a type of geocoding itself. If you look up an address in Google Maps, it identifies the latitude and longitude and then puts a pin on that location. And if you look at the URL of whatever you've searched for Google Maps, you'll actually see the latitude and longitude embedded right in that URL. So the zip code looks good for country. I could put in USA, but I'll just leave it because I think that this has plenty of information to find all of the locations. And it gives me a preview of where those locations are. And they are all here in New York City. So that looks good. This is just a sample, but it's giving me a preview. So I click yes, looks good. And then there are some additional data points that you can add. You have some things from the census. Right now, I don't want to add any of those. And I will start. So it will take a little bit of time to process. So now that the data set is done processing, I'll just click download. And then I will open up that downloaded CSV. And you'll see that it has additional columns now. So the really important ones are the latitude and the longitude. And then it has a bunch of other stuff. It's got an accuracy score, which is Geocoding giving you a ranking of how confident it is in the location it identified. Some of these are a little bit low, like 0.38 and 0.4. So for those, you might want to go and check manually using something like Google Maps. You might also look at the address that was given to see why there might be an issue. So this one is a NYCHA Beach 41st Resident Association. NYCHA complexes can be quite big and the addresses can be a little tricky. So it might have to do with that. And now this data set is ready to be mapped as points.